that you want to ask using iNaturalist, and trying to figure out how to get the data out, to try and get the information out that you need in order to answer your question. So rather than just exploring, you're going to have a question like, where do we need to go that hasn't been done before? Or which areas do we need to go to get the most number of species? Or which species can we profitably target to try and get our species numbers up? So I'm thinking in terms of planning and in terms of how one would go about using iNaturalist, using previous data from iNaturalist to help you with sorting out these questions. Okay, let's just go to our home page. Doesn't matter, any page will do, because we're interested in this top bar over here and the top menu bar. And today we're going to be busy with the Explore button over here. If you want to look up something, there's two ways of doing it. The one is you can use the search button if you want to search for something that you're not certain about, like a project or some information. But if you're interested in getting data or information out of iNaturalist, then the Explore button is the place to go. And if we click the Explore button, it opens up the menu, the page, the Explore page for you. And we can see that in my case, it's defaulted to my area of Southern Africa and tells us that we've collected 2 million observations of 36,000 species by 20,000 people over the last couple of years. What's of interest to us are these menus here, which allow us to interrogate this data. And they come in 4 boxes. There's the species box over here. And although it says species, it's not just for species. We can also use it for families or genera or tribes. So we don't actually have to look at species. Then we have the locality box or location box over there. And then we have some special filters over here that we can play around with. And then at the same time, we have the URL bar on the top there. And if you're a WizKid programmer, or if you know a little bit about coding, you can add in a few filters over there, which you can't add in anywhere else. So there's extra capacity for those who are more adventurous and experienced. So yeah, let's just start at the beginning. We want to say, choose an area. Let's take Kimberley. And so Kimberley, we're going to go into the location box. And I'm just going to illustrate it because I don't think we should work here. But if we type in Kimberley, here's Kimberley, South Africa, and iNaturalist, we click everything. iNaturalist is going to go and get the details from Google Maps and display it for us. So there we are. We put in Kimberley there. It's changed to Kimberley over there. It's gone and filtered the information. And there's now the information from Kimberley. So that's cool. You say, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is that it's gone and it's just given us a very rough area. In this case, in fact, it's used the magisterial district, which is cool. But in the example I used this morning, it gave us a square box for Overberg instead of the actual magisterial district. So in this case, it's given us what I hope is the magisterial district. We'll find that out in a moment. So I'd recommend that you only use this if you can't find a name or if there's no name on iNaturalist. If you want to use a name that you know is on iNaturalist, a place, go to the filters rather. And when you open the filters, you won't see it because it's hidden under more filters. So if we click under more filters, there is the place. And we'll see that what, in this case, what's actually happened is it's gone and taken Kimberley from iNaturalist. So this is the magisterial district. And so it's the exact place. It's the exact boundary of the magisterial district on iNaturalist. And we can zoom in over there. There's options over here. I'm going to make it full screen so that we can see it all on the whole screen. If I want to make it small again, I click there to make it small. And then I can zoom in. And you see that at far out, it's a heat map showing which squares are recorded in. But as we go in, it actually starts showing us the actual data points. So we can see over here at Kimberley, we have some good data over here, all in blue. And blue means it's vertebrates. Green means it's plants. Pink means it's fungi. And red means it's invertebrates. So that's more or less what we want. So we've got some plants around this flay. And we've probably got some flamingos on the flay. But this area here has got no plants recorded, just animals. And here we've got big bits that have no data in them at all. perhaps they not exciting, or perhaps they are, and some more information over there. So if we know this area well and we can have a look at it, we can say, oh, well, if we want those sort of plants, we need to go into the savanna regions over here and record them there. And if we want the disturbed areas, we want to go around the mine dumps and get those species. But don't go out, because that's outside the magisterial district. That won't be part of the City Nature Challenge, so you need to stay inside. And then you'll see, you can't see over here, but for the City Nature Challenge, Makala Nature Reserve, Makala National Park is actually included in the data. So there's that. Just a few other things. Let me just try and find them for you. This has got a few round circles over there. Now, those round circles are not like these, which have the root. The root are exact localities. These round circles are probably rhinos or something where the localities have been hidden. So there's nothing there. All this is telling us that somewhere in the 22 by 22 kilometer area, there is a, whatever that is. What is it? It's a giraffe. Okay, so giraffes are one of the sensitive species, so they get hidden. So somewhere in this area 22, there is a giraffe. So we're not really interested in those ones. We're interested in these ones here. If you get confused, there's a legend that explains it all to you. The ones with dots in them, like this one, are research grade. The ones without dots are not research grade. Yeah, we can see the different colors there, and we can interrogate it in more detail. And if we want to, we can click on there to open the observation and to actually look and see what it was about. Okay, so that's that locality. So we can use this for planning, for seeing which areas are likely to be visited or not visited, and plan our areas or routes accordingly. So in this case, there's a lot that needs to be done over here. There's a lot of animals over there. Perhaps some plants will be useful if you're allowed to get out of your car. I don't know the area. And we can play around over there. Close the map, go reduce the size there with that button. And there it is that. So I'm going to go to another area now. Let's just try Overstrand. And there's Overstrand. And here we can see a lot more data. A lot more things are happening. And we can see all the hidden stuff sitting here out at sea. So those are probably plants that are sensitive. Well, the green ones are anyway, so we don't have the exact localities. But here again, we can see there's some areas that are very well atlased, and other areas have hardly been visited at all. And then notice that the farmland tends not to be visited, but the veld tends to be quite well visited. So here it's a case of trying to figure out which areas need visiting, and where do we need some data for to get some more information. Okay, now it's not just good enough us asking where the information is. We can also refine it a little bit. And one of the things we can do is say, what sort of species are we likely to see? And we can click on the species button, and then this will tell us these are the species in which we saw. So it's Mimetes and Owlex and Protea, nice, pretty species. We're going there. And let me just go back, if I can just go back. Let's just go look at Kimberley. There we are, there's Kimberley. We did Kimberley. Now, what species have been seen in Kimberley? If we press on Kimberley, we see that it's birds, the flamingos from the Flay, the other birds. How on earth do you get an aardvark in the top 9, in the top 3 species? Wow. But yeah, as I thought, it tends to be birds and mammals. And there's not that many plants. Okay, so Kimberley can focus a little bit on plants, perhaps, or perhaps it's the wrong season. So, of course, that's our next question. This is what we can see in Kimberley, but what will we see in Kimberley at this time of the year? And so we can go to the filters, and we can, under date observed, we can put in dates if we want to, but we can also set it by month. What months? And the months we're interested in is April, May. That's when the City Nature Challenge is going to be. So what can we expect to see in April, May? And I'm just going to switch off verifiable. Verifiable are observations which only have photographs or sounds and are not planted. I'm just going to look at everything which will allow me to see stuff that are in gardens as well. So I'll switch that off. So this is for Kimberley for the 2 months of April and May. And we can check it up here as well. It says months 4 and 5. 4 is April, 5 is May. place ID is 485668, which is Kimberley. We all knew that. And it says we can look at any species. And so now at this time of the year, it's a totally different kettle of fish. And we're now getting the chochas coming in. Yes, there's still some birds, but plants are featuring far better than the larger animals. But still low numbers, but that's fine. So we've got Buophony and Tarcananthus, got some nice birds, and the mammals aren't featuring at all. So perhaps a big gap that Kimberley can focus on is try and get their large mammals, even though it seems to have a lot of them for the rest of the year. This time of the year, they don't have that many for. But so there'll be lots of species missing here, lots of plants missing here, which we won't have because they're not flowering or because you can't identify them. Let's focus on the plants then. Let's try and see the plants that will be in April and May. We can click on the plant icon there. And now we're just looking at the plants. All those confusing birds and insects have gone. And so these are the plants which we've seen. So Astastasia, Dimorphotheca, Citranthus. And these look like large amount of them are garden plants. And where are the wild plants? Perhaps we can do with a little focus on some of the wild plants. Okay, so I used the plants there. This icon there, you can see you can choose birds, reptiles, amphibians. There are mammals, fish, or you can go and let's look at spiders, arachnids, spiders. What do they see? No, you've only got 6 records, so that's a good group you can focus on if you want to do stuff. And yeah, you've got the common orb web, phylexid, and a few others. So yeah, spiders would be a handy one. And notice that at that time of the year, perhaps you don't want to focus because it's not a good time of the year. Let's just see what we've seen all year round. No, there's not many observations of spiders. So spiders and scorpions would be a cool one to focus on. And if you've got a spider society or arachnid society, go out there and get them involved and get them to take part in the challenge. So we did it over there, but we could quite easily have just done it over here and said spiders in the taxon box. And now, of course, it won't do the scorpions, but so these are the spiders which have been seen. So some of the options you can duplicate, like the categories and the filter box for the taxa. Okay, let's switch off the spiders. So you click over here to switch them off. There's the X, that's got rid of them. So now we are again in Kimberley and we're looking at everything, but we still got it set for the time of the challenge. Let's just look at a few other things. Which species have been introduced into Kimberley? Let's look over there. These are the aliens, and we can see they've got the purple invader tag on them. So we got Melia and Apuntia and Grevillea and Lantana and roan antelope. Okay, so they've been introduced in there. They didn't occur naturally, which is interesting because Makala features its roans. And then eucalyptus and other stuff. Okay, so these are some of the aliens, and the question is whether you want to have a focus on aliens. Are there any conservation measures you want to do? Do you, for instance, want to map out where Prosopis is for conservation purposes, and Lantana? Which other ones would be important for cactus, for monitoring and for research follow-up? Or we mightn't want to be interested in the introduced ones. We might be interested in the threatened species. What species are threatened? And if we look at that end, the lesser flamingo is threatened. Okay, I didn't know that. But yes, the vulture is certainly threatened, and the black-footed cat and the roan, even though it's invasive together with the sable, they are threatened species. And yeah, so both flamingos are threatened. That's interesting. Okay, and then we got Jacaranda. Notice that Jacaranda is threatened and invasive. So if you're growing it in Kimberley, you're probably doing conservation or service because somewhere in South America, it's threatened. Yeah, and the same with Lechwe, very threatened, but I presume there are a few animals in Makala. Okay, so those are the threatened. Then we can look at the ones which are in cultivation or captive. And these are the ones that are in people's gardens. So the oaks, the shyness, the melias, the cotyledons. Interesting that this one is labeled as being, I presume this is in a cage. I presume these are caged animals, which have come up there. And we can look, there's some Stapelia from somebody's garden. Notice that these are the stock images because we're looking at the species. If you actually go to the observations and look at the grid, the pictures will look quite different. So there's your suricate, which is casual. Let's just see why it's casual. I'm going to click on it to open it. There, I'm opening it. And it's marked casual. It's got a date. It's got a locality. It's open. There's no problem there. Why is it? It's being marked as captive, presumably by the person who loaded it. Let's check. If we click on the one, it should tell us who it is. Yeah, JG Joey marked it as captive, and JGJ made the observation. So presumably this is in a zoo or a garden, or it's somebody's pet animals, and that he's taken the pictures of. Okay, so let's just go back to there. So these are the ones from gardens. These are garden plants, and yeah, you might want to survey your oaks, for instance, to look for Polyphagus shottle borer beetle, or see if the Polyphagus beetle is going into any other species in your area. So yeah, that's perhaps a good reason for looking at planted plants, but it's also nice to know what's in urban open spaces and what's invading the open spaces. So that was the captive. So, and we've looked at some of these there. Wild, of course, would not be captive. Those are all the ones which aren't captive. The needs ID and threatened, don't worry about that. We'll deal with that with the when we make the IDs, but threatened's interesting. Introduced is there. Poplar, I'm going to leave for the time being. You can look at your own observations if you want. Just click there. And that's your observations. Your name now appears in that box. And yeah, I've been to Kimberley. This is Makala, probably. And notice that when I'm in Makala, I see plants, not animals. Yeah, sorry. That's just my own bent. Okay, so let's switch off my ones. What else is there? Those are the dates. You can do exact dates. If you want to do it by the date added, you can do that, but that won't help us for City Nature Challenge. Photo licensing, if you need to use it for a publication, you can look for those which allow you to use them. And I think that's about it, but we won't use this for the City Nature Challenge. There's one other thing that I just want to point out for the City Nature Challenge, and that is you can sort it by faves. And we want it by faves descending for Kimberley. And there we are. So now these are the most favorited observations for Kimberley. And we can see here this black-footed cat has been faved 10 times. This aardvark has been faved 4 times. And this giant bullfrog has been faved twice. This lovely termite has only been faved 2 times, the poor thing. And then we've got a snail that's even been faved, and a few other things faved. And what we use this for in Cape Town is we use the phase and we ask people to fave any photographs they see during the challenge. And then the one with the most observations then would be the one that would be, we'd look at the top view and decide which one was the winner. But if it's by, clear majority, like this one, 10 versus 4, then this would be our photograph of the event. We'd use that for that, and it's very useful. And the way it works is that when somebody looks at an observation for any reason, during the event or after the event, they look at that and they say, wow, this is a lovely picture, that's a stunning picture. I'm going to vote for it, and I'll click here to fave it. Now notice it was bright green for me, so I've already faved it, so I'll fave it again. So now it's gone green for me. So now I faved it. So that's where you fave, and that's how you make something eligible for whoever it is who's going to decide, whatever the team is who's going to decide on the observation of the event. Let's just look for one which doesn't have a fave. So here's one, the suricate, and that's quite a cute picture. That's worth a fave. So I can be the first person to fave it, click it there. there we are, it's now been faved. Okay, so of course the people who are evaluating will only evaluate those that are done during the challenge. So they'll have the filter on for the observations. They'll have the filter on the range from the date starting through to the date ending, and so they'll only see the ones that are eligible. Okay, so I think we've done most of the filters. We've got them sorted by faves here. I'm going to clear Kimberly. And they can go by faves, that's fine. This is cleared. I'm just going to make sure it's empty. I haven't shown you the species box, so let's look at the species box now. But then while we're waiting for that, let us just see what it's done. So there's no filters on anymore, anywhere, and it's showing us that we have 107 million observations on iNaturalist. And this is up from 90,000 about a month ago. So it's really going up spectacularly. And almost 250,000 identifiers, 2 million observers, and we'll see 343,000 species have been observed. And then these, of course, because we've done it by order by faves, or if we look over here, it's ordered by faves. And this is the most faved observation on iNaturalist at present, and it's got 280 faves. It's got 887 comments. So yeah, it's in a league of its own. If you want to, you can go and explore it later. Okay, so we're not interested in this. We're interested in our own area, and we want one of the places. So let's choose a place. I'm going to choose Tygerberg Nature Reserve. Tygerberg. It comes up with the options, and I can choose. Do I want the hill flora or the wetland or the Tiger River Nature Park? Now I want Tygerberg Nature Reserve. And I'm now searching in Tygerberg Nature Reserve. And yeah, let me switch off that faves, because otherwise we will further over all the pictures and not concentrate on the jobs we're supposed to be doing. So there's our Tygerberg Nature Reserve. That's the grid view by that subnet. We can go there and look at the map. My map doesn't reset. I must remember that. I need to go to Tygerberg. So that's the Tygerberg Nature Reserve. And there we can see observations for Tygerberg Nature Reserve. And we're interested in, say, cats. I'm particularly interested in cats. So I can type in the species box there, cats. And it comes up and asks me, FDD, family FDD, there's cats, cool. Show me the cats. And now I can see where the cats are in Tygerberg Nature Reserve. And those are the records, that's where they've been seen. And what are the cats? All the cats that have been seen are the caracal. So just the caracal. We have 31 observations in that area of Tygerberg. So if you want to go see caracal, Tygerberg Nature Reserve is probably a cool place to go. Let's try something else. Reptiles. Lost reptilia. Click. Remember, you got to click on everything. And those are the observations of reptiles in the Tygerberg Nature Reserve. So now we can look at them and say, okay, which ones have been seen? Which ones are missing? Which species haven't been put here? Is the wrinkles here? No, the wrinkles hasn't been seen, but the Cape Cobra has been seen. We've got tortoises, the ungulate and the patloper, and the leopard tortoise, which we can see is invasive in this area. It's been released. It doesn't belong here. Yeah, I think that's about everything. Then we can plan around that and look at that and say, okay, where has the Karoo sand snake been seen? We can put it in here and go to Karoo sand snake. Have I spelled it wrong? No, it's not Samo, it's Samo. Samophilus. And then we can look in the reserve, if we go to the observations, we can see where it's been seen in the reserve. And if we desperately want to make sure that we get it for the City Nature Challenge, we'll probably target those areas. And if we would rather try and expand and get more data, we try and see if we could find it elsewhere in the reserve. But if you're trying to get your numbers up and this is the only place where you can get that snake, then these are probably the places to come target and to send some people, send your HERP group to go out here and to actually find it. So that's how we can use the species box to try and find something. And it can be general. Proteaceae, you'll see Tigerberg is not very good for Proteaceae. There's one record of a Ceruria and it's been planted. So let's change our place from Tigerberg and go to, say, Ferncliff Nature Reserve. So there's Ferncliff Nature Reserve, for those of you who know what I'm talking about. And this is a reserve in Hermanus. So we have the coast running over there. That's Kuchelberg. And that's Grootbos over here. And at Hermanus, we've got this nature reserve. And these are now the records of Proteaceae, just the Proteaceae, because that's our filter. And we can see up here, it might be worthwhile to go in and record stuff and get stuff. Which Proteaceae are we likely to see at this time of the year? We can go, oh, they are selected already. No, they're not. I need to click on to select them and update, and there we are. Those are the localities for the species, and 26 species have been seen, and these are there. So presumably the other species wouldn't be flowering at this time of the year, and so it wouldn't be that easy to identify. But these are your target species. These are what you need to try and go for, and some of them will be easy. And some of them will be difficult. You'd need to send a team up in the mountains to go find them. But yeah, you'd know for yourself which ones they are. And then, of course, you can use this here and say, which are these species that have been seen in these remote areas? Leucodendron spicifolium. Yeah, so that needs wet areas at high altitude. You're not going to find it down here on the flats. So you can plan around that. I think I have more or less covered all the obvious things in the filters. So this is the filter. Be careful, it only shows a half filter until you open the bottom half. And here you can put in projects or places. You could put in a project. So for instance, we could put in a city nature challenge. So let's put in city. Let's see, Overstrand. Here we are, Overstrand. Yeah, you see there's their 2021 BioBlitz. They've put in the one they're going to do now. That's going to be empty, so there's no point in looking at that one. There's the Great Southern BioBlitz. That's only in October. These guys are really planning ahead. They're already gearing up for the September competition. And Overstrand, Dorfkulmi, don't worry about that. So we can put this project in. And now we can see the data, which filters have I got on. I'm going to switch off the months. Now we can see the data that they got for the Great Southern BioBlitz in September last year. And then those are the species they saw. You can see a lot of them are the same because a lot of proteus can be identified without flowers. So a lot of them are the same, but there's quite a few differences in amongst them. And again, presumably because of the challenge and the nature of the challenge, they didn't do much up in the mountains there. They concentrated on the flats, presumably to get their numbers up in a hurry. But if they want those rarer species, they're going to need to go up and send a team up the top there on those high peaks to get those really rare endemic species. Okay. What else is there? I think that's about it. Let's open the floor to questions. Are there any questions?
None in the chat, Tony. Perhaps people can just ask questions live. Any questions around the Explore tool or any of the features that Tony shared this evening?